Warning: this video contains scenes of explicit logic and intense information, not suitable for stupid people. Watch at your own risk.
In this episode, 1 year, 1 survey, 1 conclusion. You don't know Islam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back all to our series, So You Think You Know Islam, Season 2. This is the first episode in this season, and it's a special episode because in this episode we will share you the results and the statistics of the survey that took place 1 year ago. Woo! For people who are new to this series and for people who forgot, this series, last year we conducted a survey consisted of 4 questions, simple questions. In this series, So You Think You Know Islam, is based on the results and the answers of this survey. The survey consisted, as I said, from 4 questions. First question was: mention 5 things you know about Islam, the basics of Islam as a religion, worship, basics, the creed, and so on. The second question was: mention any 5 things you know about social life in Islam, marriage, divorce, friendship, relative relationship, friendship, neighbors relationships, and so on. The third question was: mention any other 5 things you know about Islam. And the last question was where mostly you get your information about Islam. It was a multiple choice question from news, from entertainment media such as TV, movies, series, books, novels, and so on. Another option was internet, from Islamic resources, or from your friends or neighbors, Muslim friends and neighbors. For every correct answer, you get 1 point. For not answering, leaving a blank, you take 0. For giving a wrong answer, you will get -1.
Why?
Well, in real life, there's a huge difference between knowing, not knowing, and knowing wrong. And trust me, it's a huge difference between not knowing and knowing something wrong. It's much easier to deal with a person who doesn't know rather than to deal with a person who knows something wrong. Some people answered correct questions but not related to the topic. For any answer that wasn't related to the topic, I just simply scrap it and give it a 0. Many people mix between Islam and Muslims, mix between Islam as religion and the culture. So many times they say something that might actually be true or wrong, but it's not about Islam. It's about people themselves or the culture itself. And that's not necessarily the same thing. So some people, one of the people, for example, said that they have nice art. Islamic civilization had a nice art, a nice architect. Although that might be true, but still it has nothing to do with Islam. We're talking about Islam. Another person said Muslims are generous. Regardless, yeah, maybe the Muslims that you met were generous, but other Muslims for sure they are not. They are really cheap. Hello? No, I'm sorry, I can't lend you money. I don't care if your father gonna die. He's old, he's gonna die anyhow. Look, hey, whoa, listen. I gotta go. I'm talking to some people now. Hey, see you later. Bye. You're not talking about Islam here. You're talking about the Muslims. So in such cases, I scrap this question, that answer, and I give it a 0. So let's get to the survey and the results and see how many people did. In total, 72 people took the survey. The average of question number 1 was 2.41 out of 5. The average of question 2 was 0.42 out of 5. The average of question 3 was 0.4 out of 5. The total average of all questions was 3.26 out of 15. Yeah, that's a low score. The minimum score was minus 10 points and the maximum was plus 13. Something caught my eye concerning question number 2. Question number 2 was mention 5 things you know about social life in Islam. I noticed that many people talked only about women. Despite the fact we think the question was about social life, but many people knew only things about women issues. And there were 16 people who didn't include in this question except anything other than women issue. I put it aside because the score for this particular question for people who only talked about women was really low. They scored minus 0.19. We had 30 women took the survey, and the average of their score was 4.7. On the other hand, there were 42 men who took the survey, and their average score was 2.2. When it comes to age, 7 people out of the 72 were under 19 years. Their average score was 2.6 out of 15. People from 20 to 29, there were 28 people, and their average score was 3.1. 9 people were 30 to 39, and their average score was 5.89, the highest score for the age category. There were 10 people from 40 to 49 with average score of 4.11 out of 15. 9 people from 50 to 59 with average score of 0.56 out of 15. This is the lowest score for this category. People 60 years and above, there were 5 people and they scored 4.6. When it comes to education level, we had 13 persons who had a high school. Their score was 2.92. 24 people were from with a college. They went to college, and their score was 3.13. 14 people had a bachelor degree with an average score of 3.07, and 14 people who had master degrees, and they had the highest score, 4.93. And we had 5 people with PhD. They scored the least, 1.2. In terms of religion, 35 people described themselves as Christians. Their score was 2.15 out of 15. One Jew, and I think she was a woman, she had a score of 3. And one Hindu who had the highest score of 12 points. We had 10 people who described themselves as more spiritual than religious. 10 people, they had a high score, 6.8, almost passed. We had 8 atheists with a score of 6, and 8 agnostics with a score of 1.13. We have 6 people who answered other religions. They had a really low score, 0.67 out of 15. And 3 people preferred not to say, and they scored 4.33. Now, in terms of points, people who scored 0 or less, there were 18 people with an average of minus 1.6. 42 people scored from 1 point to 7 points with an average of 3.69. This is more than half of the sample. 6 people only scored from 8 to 10 with an average of 8.67, and 4 people only scored 11 with a range of 11 to 15 points. 4 people only with an average of 12.3, with minimum score of 12 and maximum of 13. Nobody got a full score. Ironically, one of the 4 people who had a score over 11 was my sister-in-law. Now we'll get to one of the most important aspects of the survey, which is the relationship between information sources and the score. This way you can tell which is the best source for information and the least accurate source for information. I would like to start with a strange, bizarre input. There were only 2 people who said that they get their information about Islam only from Islamic sources. That's not the strange thing. The strange, bizarre thing that their average score was 1.5 out of 15. I don't know if, of course, 2 people is not a representative sample, but if this is anyway near, are you sure it was Islamic sources or anti-Islamic sources? This raises a huge question about what is presented to people as Islamic sources. Anyhow, there were 25 answers that contained Islamic sources. By the way, in this question, you can select more than one source. There were, as we said, 21 persons who had Islamic sources contained in their answers, and their average score was 3.76 out of 15. 5 people said they get their information only from news, and they scored really low, 0.6 out of 15. People who had news included in their answers, and their sources, they were 31 people, and their score average was 2.39. You can see the score is a little bit low here. People who get their information only from their Muslim friends and colleagues, they were 15, and their average score was 3.4. Although 3.4 is a little bit considered one of the high scores in this category, but still, it's very low. It's 3.4 out of 15. This raises a huge question about what type of Islam we are presented to people. This even raises a huge question about, do Muslims actually understand and know Islam and practice in Islam? To tell you the truth, I was not surprised that the results were low and the scores were low, but I was surprised that people who get their information from their colleagues and friends scored that low. There was 48 answers contained Muslim friends and colleagues in their sources, and they scored 3.87. Now, here's a strange one. People who get their information only from internet, there were 2 people. And the most strange thing is that they scored the highest among this category, 5 out of 15. Answers that contained internet in its sources, there were 21, and they scored average of 3.67. Now, here's a really interesting thing. People who get their information only from media, i.e. news, entertainment media, and internet, there were 13 people, and they scored average of 1.69, really low. People who get their information only from news and entertainment media, movies, books, novels, magazines, and so on, they scored even more less. There were 8 people, they scored even more less, 1.125 out of 15. Now, people who get their information from everything except media, i.e. excluding news, entertainment, and internet, they were 23 people, and they scored really high, compared to this category, really high, 4.09, the second highest score. That tells you something. Okay, as I said before, this survey may not be representative for how people in the West, or the degree of knowledge about Islam in the West, but it can give you a rough estimation of how things look like. And I'm not concerned with the results and the score in this survey as much as I'm concerned with the your questions and your comments. But as I said, this can give you a rough guideline of how things look like. And this is exactly why I'm doing this series, so you think you know Islam. So starting from next episode and the episodes to come, I will start discussing topics, not only answering questions, one question at a time. No, I will start gathering your points and your comments in categories and discuss an entire topic. So the coming episodes in this season will be intense and heavy with information. So I hope that it will be received with an open mind. As they say, as someone said, I don't know who, but the mind is like a parachute. It cannot be used unless it's opened. So this brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you for watching, and I hope we will see you again in the next episode. Stay tuned. Until then, have a nice day, and I wish you best of luck. Thank you very much for watching. Please share and comment, and don't stop sending your questions. Thank you very much. See you later.